Chapter 3. I was 12 years old when the wall began. Podgorz, our neighborhood, was being walled up. From Zadky Square to the Podgorz market down to the Lasati place. The Nazis were walling us in. I went out to see it. It was nearly 3 meters tall and made of brick. At the top, it had rounded caps like the tops of tombstones. The wall stretched from one building corner to another, right across the street, cutting us off from the rest of Krakow. In the buildings that were part of the wall, they bricked up the windows and doors so no one could escape. There were only 3 ways in. A gate at Zadky Square, another at the market, and another on Lwowska Street. I ran from gate to gate, taking it all in. Podgorz was now the Jewish ghetto. All the Poles there who weren't Jews had to move out. All the Jews who lived outside the ghetto in Krakow had to move in. I watched them moving in, wave after wave of them. Huge groups of Jews climbing out of trucks and going down Lwowska Street. There were men and women and children and families, teenagers, grandparents. They all wore Star of David armbands like us. Some of them wore the uniforms of the jobs they'd had too. Policemen, postmen, nurses, trolley conductors. There were no jobs for Jews anymore. No jobs besides cleaning the toilets of German soldiers. My father and uncle had lost their shops, had their inventories seized by the Nazis, just as Uncle Mosh said they would. The new Jews carried their luggage with them, everything they owned in the world, and they looked around with big, worried eyes at the buildings and streets of their new homes. They were probably hoping things would be better here than wherever it was they came from. But everything that had happened over the last year had taught us that things always got worse. There were a few empty flats by the departing Poles, but not nearly enough for all the new people. My parents came out onto the street and invited a family to come live with us, the Laskys, a family of 3 with a 7-year-old boy named Aaron. We gave them my bedroom, and I slept in the sitting room. Other families did the same. Then, as the days went by, more and more Jews poured into the ghetto. Not just from Krakow now, but from the villages and towns outside the city. We took in a second family, the Rosenblums, and a third, the Brotmans. The Germans even made it a rule. Every flat must hold at least 4 families. I no longer had my own bedroom, nor did my parents. The children had one room, and the adults were divided between my parents' bedroom and the sitting room. Only the kitchen was shared by all. There were 14 of us in a flat that had been cozy for 3. All I ever wanted to do was get out of the house and go play with my friends. It was far too crowded at home, but my parents wouldn't let me go outside for fear I'd get taken up in a work gang. Any time the Germans had work to be done, like scrubbing toilets or helping build the wall, they grabbed the Jews off the street to do it. My father was taken all the time. Sometimes Mother. The Nazis even took people out of the ghetto to work elsewhere in Krakow. Sometimes they never returned. This will be all over by summer, my father told us. We'll just have to make do until then. He was my father, and I wanted to believe him, but I wasn't so sure anymore. It was January 1941. The Germans ruled Krakow. I was 12 years old, and for the first time in my life, I had begun to doubt my father.